months in them conditions in Hellmarsh, which is a lot worse. And all I can say is I support him as an individual against the power of the state, but he has to understand that the state that is attacking him is the British state. It is the British political union that is attacking him. And possibly one of the reasons, as they keep bringing up, is the English defence, whatever it was, the League or whatever they called themselves. As soon as you put any form of title of English into anything, you will be attacked in this country. I've just come back from Portugal, and they love the English. And you can say I'm English. They understand the difference between British and English, by the way, in Portugal, right? Because they understand they're Portuguese and not European. And the irony that you cannot call yourself an Englishman in England, and if you do, you are attacked as a racist.
So I'm going to read you the charges Tommy now has pending and see if you can explain to me what all this stuff means. Because they're saying that he is currently facing 2 further separate court cases. He's due to appear at Westminster Magistrates Court on June 5th, accused of harassing 2 journalists. He was charged with 2 counts of harassment causing fear of violence between August the 5th and 7th, 2024. He is also facing a separate trial in October next year over an accusation that he failed to provide the PIN for his mobile phone when stopped by Kent Police in Folkestone, July 2024. So could you explain what all that's about, these two more cases?
I don't know the details of them. The terrorist, what they suggest is a terrorist case is absolute BS. And again, I've said to many people, if they stop me at the border and ask for my pins and reference the Terrorism Act, I shall say no comment. They can lock me up for as long as they want, and I will still say no comment. In any situation that you are in with any police, anywhere, you do not say anything to them whatsoever. You say no comment. You plead not guilty. And if it's a jury under indictment, you opt for the jury trial and you represent your own case to the jury, and the jury, again, on a not guilty verdict, it cannot be appealed by the state.
All right, so are they just playing law for them because Tommy's out? They're just trying to put him right back in to get him out of the way and shut him up?
Well, that's what they used to do in the old days. In the old days, you used to get something called a gate arrest. And it wasn't outlawed as such, but it was frowned upon by the system and they stopped doing it. But there are people out there that have said, you know, like Category A is nothing to do with the government, etc. Category A, you are actually under the control of the Home Office. But the person that issues you with the Category A is the police. So again, the police have got control of you while you're in the prison system. The Home Office have complete control. The governor doesn't have that much control over you because literally you are under the control of the Home Office and the police. So there's lots of things that need to come in. There was a great book written years ago, which was called Prison Law by Simon Crichton. And again, it's a great book. He's still out there as a solicitor. The problem you've got is these solicitors and barristers are British. And these people need to start to learn, especially Tommy Robinson, that when he stands up and starts waving the British flag, he's waving the flag of the enemy that have put him behind a door. And he's not getting that yet. It's no different to what happened in the Soviet Union. If you was a dissident and a Russian dissident, literally in Russia, in the Soviet Union, if you stood up in front of a judge and said, I'm Russian, they'd put you in the gulag, right? Those people, including Alexander Zelensky, he left, went to East Germany, crossed over to West Germany. He then went to America, political asylum, and he wrote many volumes of his books, and not just there, but a few other places. But he called himself a Russian. He never called himself a Soviet. And that's like me, always calling myself an Englishman. I am not British. British is a legal fiction that's been designed by the state, the same as the USSR, to remove your rights as an Englishman, a Scotsman, an Irishman, or a Welshman. So that's what people have got to understand. If Tommy really is serious, he would talk to someone like me that does understand the law, does understand. And again, I'm not, you know, he's got to get over his ego, and he has got an ego, and he's got to start looking at what he's doing, and he's doing it for the country, right? And he's doing it for future generations. And the only thing that can free us now is to free ourselves from the British political union.
So if they come for me, Graham, can I contact you?
Say that again.
If they come for me because of my reporting, can I contact you?
Yeah, of course you can. You have
right,
absolutely, especially I class you as a journalist, and there are special rules that are associated with journalists, and people need to understand that.
So Maria is wondering, is the phone pin requirement from the British Union an attack on all journalists?
It's an attack on every single one of us, not just journalists, but also journalists. And if there's any information on them devices which are classed as legal privilege, which again is communication between yourself and your legal advisor, they are not allowed access to that information.
So Dark Side wants to know, are the criminal courts fair? Can I trust criminal defense solicitors?
No.
Why not?
On both counts. Well, solicitors are, first of all, they don't take an oath. And not that the oath system means anything in this country anymore, because it's been destroyed by the Soviets or the British Soviets, and the people who don't believe in God. The British solicitors are feeding off the teat of the British system. It's as simple as that. They are simply administrators and part of the process of putting you behind the door. They're not interested in your rights. And it's only people like me, and don't forget, I am also a registered paralegal. And again, the courts don't have to allow me to speak for you. I have to ask permission to do that. And in certain circumstances, they will allow me permission or what's known as give me an audience. But I have had an audience of the High Court, and I've won the case against the police, or won a stage of the case against the police.
So I'm going to ask you about this lady now. And we saw lots of news about her since we last spoke. She lost her appeal, and now they're also talking about Trump reignites free speech row with Starmer as US says it is monitoring the Lucy Connolly case. And for people not familiar, she's got a 31-month jail sentence. She tweeted after the Southport massacres. It was in the heat of the moment. She took it down. She'd already lost one of her own kids, so it triggered her. And we've got 30 people a day in this country now going to prison for social media posts. Now, what can Trump do? Because this is two completely separate legal jurisdictions, isn't it, Graham?
It is, but it's a common law jurisdiction. But what Trump can do as the executive in America, he can apply tariffs on the British. And he can say, all President Trump needs to do is to say that the British Union is now the Soviet Union, and Commonwealth jurisdictions and common law jurisdictions around the world need to stand up for England. And again, President Trump has stood up for England, expressly England, right? And people need to understand that. What's happened to Lucy is outrageous. Again, it's a good indication. It goes back to the earlier comment that the gentleman made, or the lady made, about can you trust solicitors in a criminal law? And the answer is no. Her solicitors, her barristers advised her to plead guilty. Right? Straight away, not guilty. Don't speak to the police. Don't speak to the solicitors. Ask for a jury. Get in front of a jury. And at worst case, if it is what's known as a summons only offence, in other words, it is not a non-indictable offence. Therefore, you don't have an option for a jury. Always opt for a jury, and be brave enough to speak to your peers, right? Because you will get a not guilty. And the major thing is she didn't do that. She took the advice of British solicitors, British barristers, and that's why she's in prison. They are the people that created that. And the High Court judge and the Appeals Court judge that made that ruling is an absolute disgrace. And that under English law, there are ways of dealing with them. If you go back to King Alfred, he actually dealt with 44 judges that caused the death of 44 various different subjects around the world. And how did he deal with that? He said, you have all perjured your oath in the most, serious and heinous way. And he hanged 44 judges. So if you perjure your oath as a judge in the common law, is the most serious offence you can commit. It's next to treason.
All right. So we've got another Lucy to talk about. And the news with Lucy Letby is that the publication date of the inquiry report has been pushed back to early 2026. So what are your thoughts on Lucy's predicament?
Again, I campaigned in Runcorn and Hillsby. One of the things that you used to be able to do prior to Margaret Thatcher, yet again, was that if you was wrongly convicted, you could campaign as a member of parliament in your constituency, and then if the local people knew, a bit like the old oath system, if they knew you was innocent, they'd vote for you and they would elect you as an MP and give you a voice in parliament. That was removed by Margaret Thatcher, and it was because of the IRA. She removed that because the IRA lifers were being elected to Westminster. And then what she did, she made it that if you had a sentence of more than 2 years, and that meant you had to be serving more than a year actually in prison, then you couldn't. So if you got 6 months, which is why I said to Tommy Robinson, you should be standing for election, you'd win. And obviously you never come back to me. But Lucy Letby, the hospital that she was at come within the area slightly of the constituency of Runcorn and Hillsby. So on my campaign, I was talking about Lucy Letby and saying that this is first of all, this is, how can I put this in the clearest possible terms? She's a whistleblower, and this is a direct attack on whistleblowing, and especially any form of whistleblowing against the National Health Service, which has become a socialist religion. They are doing more harm than good, and obviously they are now harming babies in baby wards where you've got raw sewage running down. Don't forget the other part of this story to your audience, and I think this is crucially important, and people must understand this, that a guy come forward and was financing, he was a multi-billionaire, and he was financing her appeal. He had recently been found not guilty in America of a major fraud against Hewlett Packard, and they said it was a national security issue. Him and his co-defendant, both from England, were found not guilty. They come back to England. He happens to be a statistician. He's on a £300 million boat in the Mediterranean, and it sinks, kills him and his family. Within 2 hours, his co-defendant in Cambridge gets run over and killed. On the same day, within 2 hours. And them people was backing that lady's appeal, right? So all I'm saying to people is I'm not a conspiracy theorist, and everything is a conspiracy until it goes in front of the jury and the jury finds you guilty or not guilty.
Wow. Well, thanks for all the questions that are coming in, folks. Please keep them coming in. We've got over 1,000 watching live. This is part 2 with Graham. Link for part 1's in description. His X is in the description. And his website, I'll put all of them in the live chat right now. And I will keep your questions flowing. Let me just put these in the live chat first so you can follow his work, go to the website, follow him on X. And we have got from Jew Princess. Can we dissolve the king? Can we dissolve the Labour government?
The answer to that is, in my opinion, as a constitutionalist, the king has already abdicated. Where do I get that from? The Glorious Revolution and the statements made by Lord John Somers and who became the Lord Chief Justice Holt. So they basically stated that if a king does something that purges his oath, he doesn't have to do it in writing. It can be by his actions. And I think we can clearly see that the King of England has abdicated by his non-action in taking back control of the realm. Can we dissolve the Labour government? Again, there are ways of doing it. I won't go too far into it on this, but yeah, we have, as English men and women, the absolute right to take back our country if the country is being run tyrannously, which it is.
Can the UK be dissolved? That's from Nath.
Yes, easily, very simply. The UK is simply dissolved. And again, we're unique in the world to be able to have this. Very similar to the USSR. When they dissolved the political union of the USSR, it went back to being a commonwealth of nations, which it is now. It has its own constitution, etc. Russia and separate nations. So it isn't part of a political union anymore. The simplest way to do it is to void, not repeal. They're two separate legal terms. You void the acts of union for being in bad faith. England and Scotland would then be, again, independent nations. Ireland, again, what we're saying is Northern Ireland should be a complete independent nation, no different to the Isle of Man. The Isle of Man was never in the European Union, for example, because its own parliament elected not to be. So it didn't charge their people VAT. There was no VAT on the Isle of Man, which is why people bought various things in the Isle of Man and then crossed back over the channel into England. Not saying that I ever did that, but you get the idea. And what really happens is that you go back to being what we used to be, right? And so what did we used to be? And that is a brotherhood of nations. You go back to the union of the crowns. And then if Scotland or England decides they don't want to have a monarchy anymore, the common law can deliver you one of two things: a republic or a monarchy. So we would still have the constitution, we still have the common law, and we would be an independent nation. As for Wales, Wales joined England, and it was done by it was an English king with Welsh. He was a Welsh of Welsh descent, and that happened in 1536. Wales are quite welcome to be completely independent. We believe in self-determination for nations. We even believe that Cornwall should be completely independent. It's not a negative thing, it's a positive thing.
Next viewer question: is the monarchy a corporation?
There's lots of corporations. Corporations have been there for many, 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 many centuries in different variations. But you must remember, I believe it was, I can't remember the name of the case, but it was in 1612. And Sir Edward Coke actually delivered a judgment on what's being discussed there with corporations. And at the end of the day, it's very similar. If you want to talk about the king can do no wrong, but his servants can, right? So you'd sue the servants of the crown, but even the king in itself is a legal fiction. So technically it is. How you would argue that in a court, because many of the judges today don't know their arse from their elbows.
Victoria is asking, are the monarchy and the UK Gov in a catch-22? If the king threatens to dissolve parliament, then government will threaten referendum on monarchy.
Well, the easiest thing to understand about that, and again, I could go into the law on detail with that one. The monarchy can dissolve Parliament tomorrow if it wanted to, and there is absolutely nothing anyone could do about it. It could go in front of the King's Bench, and it would end up in front of the Supreme Court. We do have a separation of powers, but if the Parliament is seen to be harming the nation and harming the peace of people, the King should step in and dissolve it. Can Parliament threaten a referendum on the monarchy? It can threaten what it likes, is the answer.
Lenny wants to know if you know the name of the company that Prince William is on the board of.
He's probably on the board of a few companies. Is it Serco?
Oh, God. Profiting from the bloody asylum seekers, Serco. Truth Crusader is asking, does the Constitution concept come from the Greek rather than the Roman administration system?
Greek. So the Greek system was more of a confederacy, whereas the Roman system and the Roman administration system. So just to make sure people are aware of this, the British Union is an extension of the Roman system, and the Roman system was not good at all.
All right, Spooky Spoon, how can we get the king to get off his butt and do something to save the country?
Protest against him.
He's doing the complete opposite, isn't he, right now?
No, I have never. So again, for all those people who are royalists and monarchists out there, there have been many times in our history when the king has gone against the people, and this is one of those times.
Yeah, and they're just in our face doing it. It's terrible.
Well,
so,
I prefer public.
Do you think there should be a referendum on Europe and the monarchy?
When you say referendum on Europe, I don't understand. There's already been one. We should never have gone into the European Union in the first place. It goes against the supremacy clause of the English Bill of Rights. As for the monarchy, I would have a referendum tomorrow. But the problem you've got is that the socialist communist system is controlling the broadcast media, and therefore you would not be informed enough to make a proper decision.
So, DCAT, the UK is not a corporation in the legal sense. UK PLC is not a legal entity. A sovereign nation with a government and a parliament, not a single corporation. Anything to add to that, Graham?
The only thing that I will say to people is you should always remember there is a separation of powers. So there are the three estates. Technically, there's the fourth estate, which is the jury. But the three estates are the monarchy, parliament, and the judiciary. In effect, we are beneficiaries of our common law rights. We are the beneficiaries of the Constitution, and it is the separation of powers which are the trustees. That is failing currently, and it is a very simple concept, and people are not taught it in school.
All right. From Ian, do you agree that the UK's largely uncodified constitution makes us quite flexible?
The common law, the common law constitution, as it's described. Again, if I was to show you volume 10, which is this one here. So again, this is not a green screen. This is real, right? So when you say there's not much constitutional law, there's volume 10 constitutional law. There's lots of bits and pieces in there. I use this quite regularly. There's quite a bit of our constitution that is written. But the beauty of England is it's 1100 years old, and the common law allows the judges, as part of the stabling system, to turn the gas up or turn the gas down. They're given quite a bit of power under the common law to operate. Unlike a fully codified constitution, which is the United States of America, you have to go through an amendment process, etc. That can cause a lot of problems. But the major issue really for me is the oath system. It needs to be changed and it needs to be a simple change to the oath system where the judges and everyone take an oath to, one, England as a nation, not the British or Britain, but England as a nation, and two, to the Constitution, because there is a Constitution. To be fair, it's largely written, not unwritten. It's just in many different documents. And just to make sure you're clear on this, we did used to have a codified constitution under Cromwell. All right. And 2 years after he died, the king and his merry men dug him up and stuck his head on the spike.
Next question. How do places like Rotherham and Bolton ever become English again?
I've got a whole plan for that. It's quite simple. You cut off all the benefits to the people. So under the English system of law, the Constitution, especially the Bill of Rights, Sharia is already unlawful. You enforce the Constitution, then people will leave.
What would Graham do if he got into Parliament as Prime Minister?
I don't want to be Prime Minister. I would rather be the Lord Chief Justice, and you will see everything change, including seeing the people that have perjured their oath in every walk of our separation of powers. You will see them tried fairly, of course, in front of a jury, and if found guilty of perjury and committing treason, they will be hung. So make me the Lord Chief Justice and you will see justice.
Amy wants to know, I agree with a lot of what Graham is saying, but is he racist? Does he want a divided country?
So I don't understand what that means. So first of all, when you talk about racism, for example, you cannot officially under the Constitution of England be a member of Parliament, Lord, be a police constable, or have any position of profit unless both of your parents were English. So you must be born of English parents. The reason why that was brought in was nothing to do with race or colour. It was brought in because the Dutch king, who was in charge of the country at the time, was getting his mates in and they was robbing people. Not when I say robbing people, I mean they was taking profit from the country and taking it back to Holland. So what we did was we created the Acts of Settlement to stop that. It's nothing to do with the colour of your skin, but it's everything to do with looking after the realm, the country and the people that are building the country, which were the English. On the other part of that question about division, I want everyone to remember this. The British and the European Union are still dividing England into 9 regions. And when they speak of the United Kingdom, they then say the nations, talking about Scotland, Wales and Ireland, and then they refer to the regions of the UK. They don't even say the name England. So anyone out there who talks about division, you want to be looking at what they're doing to our country, which is dividing us into 9 regions and destroying England.
Do you feel it is dangerous to discuss these topics?
Yes.
Can you give an update on your litigation initiated in Texas?
Right. So at the moment, we've got a hearing coming up on June the 13th in this country. We have to find out what's going on in this country before we can progress into Texas. But there is an element of that, which is the torture side of it, that we will be bringing in Texas.
What are you guys up to in Texas?
Well, so Charlie Staples, who was tortured by the British police, we took it through the system under the Criminal Justice Act 1988, Section 134, torture. It then had to go to the Attorney General. The Attorney General didn't give it to us. It went to the Court of Appeal. It went to the normal High Court. Then we went to the Court of Appeal. We got a knockback on both, basically because they're protecting the British system against a torture charge. And now it's opened the gates for us to bring it under universal jurisdiction in Texas.
From Trevor, those of us with dual heritage, thanks to the former Commonwealth, where do we stand in your plans?
Well, when you say dual heritage, I don't understand what they mean. So if you've got a Scottish father and an English mother, and you was born in England, you're English, right? If you then moved to Scotland, and you swear allegiance to Scotland and their constitution and their Roman administrative law, and you want to be Scottish, then you're Scottish. That's it. But this nonsense that is put out there that you're British because you've got makes me laugh when people say, well, I'm British because my dad's Scottish and my mum's English, right? That's not where it come from. It come from the British Nationality Act of 1981 and 1947, when they completely removed English, Scottish, Welsh and Irish and stuck on your forehead British. And the reason they did that was because all the time you're wearing a legal fiction that says British, you've got no English rights. So for me, it's obvious, but to many people out there, they have been indoctrinated to think something that is completely wrong.
Why are the social services so powerful, and how can the corruption be beaten?
They are so powerful because what